Hey, this is Austin Moore. This is my submission for Installer of the Year 2026. Very grateful to make it in the top 12, so I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you for watching. My installs can be based on my 2017 Volkswagen GTI. All the stuff that I have that I'm installing in this thing was primarily given to me through a raffle that I won at Master Tech 2025. So here you see me starting to map out exactly what my game plan is with the head unit. The head unit is definitely a little bit bigger than what your standard double din would be, so I had to do a little bit of modification to the Metro piece to both fill the air vents area and also get me the area I needed to map out the section that I'm going to install the frame for. So here you'll see I got that frame kind of cut out and in position I like, held in place with some CA glue, and then I'm going to go through with some 3M 08223 polyurethane and affix the whole thing so that it's just one nice and solid piece.
It's one solid piece.
Here you can see I've got a piece of visor board that I digitally templated to match the profile of the top of the dash kit to the top of the frame of the Horizon radio, allowing me to digitally mock up what I want to do for the gauges. So here I've transferred over to Fusion and had a rough design on exactly what I want the shape to be. And then I kind of utilized that to get me a little bit heavier of a rendering to get me more of a design aesthetic that I thought was pleasing to the eye. I messed with some colors and things of that nature to make it look as OEM as possible. Now doing it in this fashion too, where I'm modifying just the aftermarket dash kit, nothing on the vehicle itself has been modified. That's something I really wanted to do, is do this whole entire install, this whole entire vehicle, without modifying the vehicle at all. So everything go back completely stock, completely how it was in 2017, and nobody even had a clue that I was there. So here you can see I'm utilizing the geometry of the OEM button and integrating it into a piece of ASA so that I can use the factory hazard button in this aftermarket application. Now I've designed a plug that I'm going to basically use as a filler guide so that I can have exact geometry that I want my body filler to follow between the dash kit and this plug that I've made, so that I have a smooth transition from what I currently had to what I would like to have. I did more passes on this than I wanted to do. I was still getting used to how much hardener I had to use from being in Tennessee atmosphere comparative to Illinois, which is actually a lot more different than you think it would be. I didn't use a mold release, and as you can see here, definitely should have. So my issue was that the body filler actually grabbed the tape pretty decently, but nevertheless basically just taped it back in place, used my mold release, and then filled it again, correcting my mistakes. And now you see here I've got it in some primer, and I'm ready to cut out the intake area for the air vent. As you can see, I got a little too proud and a little too quick with the router and destroyed all that work that I did. But I basically just put my plug back in, repaired all the damage with polyurethane, and then re-body filled it. So it's almost like that accident never happened. And then I cleaned up everything with a die grinder so it looked nice and finished. And then I decided on this piece not to paint it, but I actually wrapped it in a gloss black vinyl. It looks very OEM-esque. Pretty happy with the way that was turning out. So then it was time to move to the dash kit itself. The dash kit for the double din wants you to cut the dash, but I decided not to do that, considering this is a single din application that I could maneuver everything aftermarket-wise to fit the OEM integration as much as possible without having to cut or modify any of the dash itself. Here you can see I have the RCAs run down that metal bracket right there. Down to the passenger side, keep my signal wires away from my power wire as much as I possibly can. Signal wires are basically ran underneath the seat next to the transmission hub, so I can keep it as far away from any signals as possible. Next, I started on the subwoofer enclosure.
So as you can see, I'm utilizing pretty much every inch of the spare tire area.
The enclosure itself was designed off a 3D scan that I made of my trunk. So here you can see the properties. I have the airspace that I can actually calculate because I used everything through Fusion 360. Everything was cut on the CNC router with one piece of 4x8 MDF.
So this is the bottom two layers of the enclosure. And as you can see, I have this in 4 different pieces. And I mean, although I think it would have been ideal to cut it in one shape, it's just a huge waste of wood. So as you can see, I've got 2 screws tying those 2 together. So whenever I go and glue this up, those are going to be, quote, my alignment pins, and also cause compression on all these joints that are going to have wood glue in it, hopefully causing 0 air leaks. Something else that I think is kind of important to note is that whenever I did the cuts to put, 4 pieces together for each layer, I made sure that the stacking layers, the cuts didn't line up. That way I've got overlap that's going to cause more strength and less likelihood of an air gap. A couple little pauses there, but the whole thing is finally glued together. Gonna let it sit for a couple hours and dry now. And then the port is getting printed as we speak. Pretty excited. Back half of the port's done. Front half is on its way. For the most part, what you see, well, I guess you won't see any of this, to be honest. That's why I made it in this terribly bright orange. This will be buried in the box and you should never see the light of day. But looks like the top half of the port is done. And she is really on that build plate. Okay, whole build plate's coming off with it. Looks like something Mario would jump in. Now that has to be the most ridiculous port you've ever seen. Alright, so I'm going to make a new cover for the sub enclosure. So I took this template off of the enclosure that I've designed on Fusion 360, overgrew it a 1/2 inch, which I'm going to use for my salvage. This is going to be the face where the sub goes in, and then I'm going to make a couple belts that attach around the whole entire thing, put a beauty stitch in it, and then install it on top of the box. These are my 3 pieces I have. Basically all it is the face and the 2 belts. These are get sewn in the middle of the face there and the middle of the face there. Got it stitched now, got a nice little subtle red double fell there, all out of the Unisway. So get this glued on and it's proper home. Laid my glue all out. Tip for people, if you want a perfect little cut seam around some edge, just use a washer. And I'm using what's called a space pin, which is a fabric pin. Draw your line all the way across, follow it with a razor blade. And then right here, these inside lines, I just basically scored the line with just white chalk. Now I have kind of a guide point where my blade needs to go as I go around the ports and sub area. Using that technique, I have a nice clean edge. It's a raw edge of the material, but it's nice and uniform all the way through the box. We try to keep it uniform by the speaker terminals. And then this is the thread that's stitched through this whole entire thing. So I'll take a Dremel and just put a little groove right there and hide that bulk inside of the wood right there. Port is in place. 2 screws mounted on this side and the other side. I don't know if I can get a video of this or not, but there is a 1/4 inch, an 1/8 inch on the top, and an 1/8 inch on the bottom, that it clears everything, so that whenever it's screwed in, it shouldn't move up and down and touch the top or the bottom. Yeah, pretty excited. I had to make it in 2 parts so it wouldn't fit in that enclosure. The front part barely comes out as is. And then this part here has to literally be twisted to come out. Pretty cool. With ASA, and I've just attached a carriage bolt through it. So this will go through the enclosure, back down into the OEM position, and then twist 90 degrees. And then just like holding the spare tire in, it's going to hold my whole entire enclosure in. The sub box was not designed for carpet to wrap around the edge, so we'll see how snug it is. I bet it's going to be real snug. Oh, so nice, man. Look at that. That's awesome. All right, back locking the enclosure down, even though it fits super, super snug. So it should drop straight down. There it goes. Twist it 90 degrees. Pulls back up and tightens down. Attaching to the spare tire post. That thing is not ever going anywhere. I don't care if I'm flipping this car upside down. Port's all installed. Pretty solid. Don't think it's going anywhere. I did put a little Tessa interior tape on the two joints. There is no fasteners holding them together at all, and I was going to super glue it, but I mean, for maintenance reasons, I don't think I want to do that. It was a pretty long print, way longer than I thought it was going to be. So for right now, that's what we're going to be rocking. Make sure we don't have any rattles or anything like that. Throw this up, and today we're going to be installing the Audio Control Altitude Series 600x4. So basically it's just going to be mirroring the 1500x1 that I've already installed. A couple tips for you. So I don't like just drilling through into MDF. It likes to mushroom quite a bit, so I like to pre-drill. Pre-drilling through carpet's kind of a pain in the ass, so I'm going to show you what I do. Put my amp where I want to, on top of some tape. I mark it with just a straight pick or an awl. They also make products like this. This is a Dixon Reach, and what it is a marker with a really, really thin tip to be able to get into like really tight places like that. The problem is it just isn't quite long enough for my needs here. But what I'm going to do now is, I've already marked that with the awl. There's my hole there. I will use a soldering iron, and with that tip I'm just going to poke through, kind of spreading the carpet, melting it a little bit, and then I'm going to pre-drill my hole through there. And if you're curious, yes, every hole is going to be melted, pre-drilled, and then I'll put my screw in it. So I'm getting ready to install the fuse box that I have in the back portion of the car, and I haven't done any of this portion yet, so I was just doing the big stuff. And I needed to figure out how far it is from the edge of the amp board over so that I can put that in the correct place, knowing that I'm going to give myself enough room for this contraption. So the good thing about using Fusion 360 and laying all your stuff out is, well, I can measure that. So point to point is 6.307 inches. So as long as I have that much distance away from the amp board side, I know I'm going to be safe to have room for this later on. All right, got this bad boy pre-wired. Got my Stinger 12 gauge going in there, ferrules, some Amazon special right angle adapters, Stinger 6000 series 3-foot RCAs, and then some power wire, some ferrules, remote attached on there too. It's got the Altitude 600x4 all wired up. I'm using the Stinger Pro Series 8 gauge, their 18 gauge, the Stinger RCAs, some Amazon special right angle adapters. I'm not really happy with the whole thing going on here with how close this is, but it's what I'm going to be rocking for a while until I decide to make my own RCAs. And then there's some JL Audio marine wire that I've had installed in many vehicles, as you can see from the old sound deadening sitting on it. But I like to reuse my stuff because I am cheap and don't like to buy new stuff if I don't have to. So it's all pre-wired and ready to get put in place in the amp rack. All right, this is where we're at for the night. I've got the monoblock still hooked up, the 600x4 hooked up. This is my imaginary DSP right now, so just some RCA barrels on there connected to my RCAs from 1 to 1. I've got my crossovers over here, just temporarily zip tied to the power wire. Power wire is just temporarily zip tied. I don't know where everything's gonna run just yet until I get more components in here. The recoil distribution and fuse boxes put on. I basically modeled the factory tweeter, and then I made a casing that was the same outside features pretty much, but I actually made a negative cavity, so I was able to take the audio control tweeter and bury it inside of that. So what that's going to allow me to do is take the factory A pillar and then take out the factory speaker, boop, and then attach the aftermarket one just how it was from the factory. Made the back a lot thicker. How awesome is that? They all now have the felts. Go ahead and push them in place now. The satisfying noise, hopefully. That's a little tight. Check it for noise. Felt seemed to do a pretty good trick. So now they're a lot closer together than what they were before, just by flipping one set of relays 180 degrees in rotation. The new chunk. No noise whatsoever. Go see how it fits in the car. This is that bracket I made to mount the crossovers on too from yesterday, and it was fine and all. Like, it's definitely going to be usable and stuff, but I thought that I could do a better job design wise, so I changed just a couple of things. The main features are all still there, but I put some rigidity in it by adding these 90s right here, rounding this over, make it a little bit thicker than what I had the original, and just changing a couple things about it. The middle stand, it's kind of got like a nice little design to it comparative to the original one there, but I just think it looks a little bit more like a complete piece comparative to this, which just looks simple and generic. So this thing is fitting amazing. So as you've probably seen earlier, the power wire misses everything. So I have the same amount of relays, still have 9 relays. And then also too, when I laid the back seat down, you can see it misses the fuse box. It's just sitting there right now too, so if I want to move it up I can. But there's enough room underneath of it that the terminals for the relays have enough room for me to put some adapters on there, some disconnects on there, and actually run out the side. So everything's usable. It's just sitting in place, but here's all 4 of those crossovers on that piece. Let's see if I can make this a little easier for you guys to see. So it should work pretty well. It should work pretty good as well. I'm gonna clean up some wire and things have to move around a little bit there.
I always do enjoy being able to print a whole piece out without any supports. And it popped right off the build plate, so that worked out pretty good. Next thing I designed, nothing too crazy. This sucker's just too tall, so this just flips around. Mounts it there like that, so that you can then bolt through there, and then the whole thing sits sideways. I like to show all my mistakes on here. I feel like we as an industry don't show our mistakes enough, so I'm going to start doing that. But on my modeling, I did not model this little bottom bump here, so it does not go back further. So what I'm going to do is probably just cut a hole in this. It's solid all the way through there, so I'm not too worried about it cracking or anything like that. And if it does, I'll print a new one. It's not a lot of material. Didn't take very long to print. It's not a big deal. But I think I can just go ahead and mod this just a little bit. Now she sits pretty flat. I'll probably end up reprinting it, but we'll see. So I did a little work to this thing this weekend. Not a lot, but this sucker is mounted, wired up. Got my battery isolator that's actually attached into it for ignition. So this fuse box doesn't turn on until ignition's on. This will be powering a lot of relays. I have 9 of them right now. 4 of them are ground triggers from the Stinger Horizon radio. I've got one that's going to be a relay for all the remote outs to the amplifiers. One's going to be illumination. I have 3 extra that don't have any plans right now. The isolator mounted on that bracket, pretty nice. Pretty happy with that. And then I also got my crossovers mounted up too. All this wiring is still going to get cleaned up. It's just temporary. It will be cleaned up when this piece is finalized, which doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but keep on watching and maybe it will. So little update for you guys. You guys may or may not have seen this bus bar holder that I made.
and I designed it in a way that I can have 4 pieces of 4 gauge slide underneath of it. Well, I was on my way of making this cover that was labeled. This was too small, so I made a couple different variations of the bigger size. I still wasn't happy with it. This is probably like the best looking one that I got, and I wasn't really happy with that. I'm just gonna end up cutting a piece of acrylic so that it has the labels and stuff with a little bit more detail. But then I decided I was gonna get a little crazy with it and design my own bus bar instead of using Amazon bought bus bars and applying them to something. So I've worked on that the past couple of days here. I basically just modeled this, which doesn't look super crazy, but it's basically just the intention of the innards of the bus bar that I bought off of Amazon. So what that allows me to do is I can actually take these screws out of the Amazon bought piece, pop the bar out, and then apply that into my 3D printed piece. So this was the first print that I did, which was just a trial basis to make sure that I had everything working. And then from there, I went to a design that's kind of the same profile as the new bar that I'm trying to make. So I did that test print as well, and that turned out really, really good. Everything kind of fell in place the way it needed it to. And what I like about this the most is comparative to version 1, it is significantly smaller. After I'm done with this version 2, if I want to add an additional bus bar somewhere else, I always have this model right here, which is the main real physical construction that I need for the bus bar to work. So I can duplicate this as much as I want to. I can add them, I can change rotation of them. I can make them sit side by side. I can make them sit in line. I can change it any way I want to relatively easily, and then just change the geometry around that. And as long as this object stays the same, it is always going to work with those bus links. All right, there's version 1 of the bus bar comparative to version 2. A lot smaller in all directions. Same amount of outputs. I also put these little ears on the edge of it that allows for zip ties. Probably end up using the smaller zip ties. But as you can see, I can use my fork terminals upside down or right side up. Kind of playing with different lengths of heat shrink to see how exactly the wire is going to want to fall. Seeing some useless space, decided to make some use out of it. So I've got this whole area over here that is just going to be wires on the floor. But instead, I made a bus bar that fits in that area, utilizes all the space, still have room down below, still have room to take the cover off and replace fuses if necessary, service the wires, anything I need there. And then this is going to be the inputs from the car, so all the triggers from the radio, the remote, the ignition, and then all of this is going to be inputs and outputs from the relays and components I'm going to install later on. Old factory speaker, and then new sandwich stack of way too many layers speaker. I'm happy with most of it. The top gasket used to be foam. I tried to make it out of TPU, and it is way too rigid just because of the structure I made it into. Update on the new gasket for the door panel to the speaker. We have a success. So basically, I took the same design that we had here, and then I put a sphere over the top edge, and then I made sure that it had 0% infill. So doing that allowed the whole inside to be hollow, and 2 walls on the outside was enough to give it some structure to actually have some real bounce back. So this is the first version of the plate, and as you can see, I have this little void right here. And I don't really know exactly why I thought that was a good idea, so I went ahead and filled that void completely. So it's got the through bolt that's going to go through the actual door panel itself. And like I said, this one was kind of ugly, so I made this one in 2 pieces. And then also, this one was angled. After further investigation, it didn't have to be angled, so I made it flat. So I printed them separately, so the inside of this one, just being at a different orientation on the printer, just print a lot nicer. So, being that it printed so nice, maybe we'll come over here at the factory plug and then just plug it straight in. So I'm going to super glue this onto the other piece. Between the bottom layer here and the door panel, it gets a TPU gasket, and the gasket is aligned so that the holes line up with one another, so they kind of sit inside there. All right, the one you've seen me building was actually an old version 2. As you can see how small those holes were, I was just going to use metal screws to attach into the ASA. But I decided to go a different route, and I actually used the brass heat certs. And so That's the real version that's going in the car. The only other thing that's been changed between these two is that hole size and the heat source put in it. All right, so that is finally bolted in place. I have a washer and a nylock bolt on the back side. As you can see, pinhead M4 there. All right, I've got my caliper here, so I'm going on the door panel to the edge of the speaker, which is probably right about there. So 1.49-ish. And then I've got my factory speaker here. So 1.51. Pretty darn close to the same thickness. So this one had a foam gasket on it between that and the door panel. And mine is going to have this TPU gasket that's squishable. All right, moment of truth. Getting the door panel put back on. I've got that gasket sitting on there. See if the sandwich is nice. The answer? Nope. So we'll take that gasket off. See if it goes on without that gasket. All right, without the gasket, it fits really good. It fits how it's supposed to. We're gonna cruise around tomorrow, see what kind of noises it makes, if any, and we're gonna go from there. So some time has passed, but I had no vibrations in this door, believe it or not, but it's still going off the radio power right now to the end of the day. So I'm gonna be putting, I think 100 watts to these a piece. So I went and just went to Home Depot and I got some of this gasket weather stripping, and I'm just gonna basically swallow that whole entire piece. It should work out pretty good. I don't think I'm gonna have any fitment issues. I went ahead, I have the ring that is gonna be for the driver's side, and I applied it to it, and with the door panel removed, it looks like it's gonna fit just fine. So we're gonna go and apply it to the passenger side door and see if the passenger side door panel pops on just fine. Fitment was pretty good, popped right on there like it should. There's no gap around the door. So I'm gonna expect 0 vibrations from that. The door panel, by the way, got 0 sound treatment. My plan is to do the whole entire vehicle, no sound treatment, and then do some RTA measuring, do the inside door skin, do some RTA measuring, do the inside of the actual door frame piece, do some RTA measuring, and compare all the results later on. Got a little bit more work done on this thing today. I'll kind of show you what exactly I did this afternoon and how the circuit's kind of set up. So all of these are the inputs from the front of the radio. I have remote, trigger 1, trigger 2, trigger 3, trigger 4, all controlled by the radio, and ignition. The ignition jumps over here and goes to the solenoid. The solenoid turns on main power for the whole entire fuse box. That's going to be running all the relays and any accessories I have back here. The blue wire is my remote. It jumps over here, comes over here to this side to this jumper. This jumper will be basically an input into a DSP and an output from the DSP to here. From there, it's going to come over here and then jump to a relay that will be powering 4 separate amplifiers in the future. Right now it's just controlling 2, so I don't need the relay for two amplifier turn-ons. And then the purple wire is on trigger 1 and will be jumping to my 2 valet triggers on the new amplifiers. That valet feature is available on all the altitude amps. So as you can see right next to the remote there, it has one called valet. And what valet does is it offers you a ground switch to hook up, and that ground switch will basically take the amplifier and then only allowed to put 25% of the power out compared to the 100% of power on. So if you have to let your parents borrow your car or teenagers borrow the car, or obviously a valet driver driving your car, you can cut that power so there's less likelihood of them blowing any of your stuff up. Next piece on the build is going to be the floor to cover all of this magical stuff up. And how I'm doing that is with a couple pieces made out of ASA. A board is strung across, and then the rest of it's going to be PVC or a board. I haven't figured out what material I'm using, but the reason why I did this is because the weird geometric shape that it is here. And then I also had to do a cutout for the fuse box because the fuse box is a little too high. And it's gapped for carpet, by the way, so it'll be sitting right about there. Piece fit pretty good. This here is pocketed for my piece of metal. The grill is going to go on top. After that, the whole entire thing is going to be covered with carpet. In the future, I'll have an amplifier there, and a DSP in the middle there. So I went ahead and put some slots in there that I'm going to cover with carpet, so you shouldn't see anything, but there should be some airflow that comes through there. The carpet's going to stop some of it, obviously, but better have some airflow than none. It works just like the factory one does, so it kind of goes up and hits these points here and gets held just like the factory floor did. And it allows me to show everything off if I want to, but when everything's all closed, all you're really gonna see is a floor with a vent there and a vent there. I think I'm done with this for the day. This has got to dry overnight. This is some silicone. I'm using silicone to isolate the metal from the wood. That was a note I took from Kaz. I went ahead and added this brace here, right here, and that actually kind of lips underneath the back piece. So the back piece here is actually supported with that piece of acrylic that's put there. So there's no separation from those two pieces, even when that thing's bent. So that's kind of nice. I also decided just to paint the edges where the ASA and the carpet's gonna meet. So basically I'm gonna take a razor blade and cut this carpet right on this edge. So I'm blackening it out just in case you'll see a little bit of the area between the carpet and the ASA. So I did that for both the handle and both of the vents. I'm about ready now to lay the carpet on top of this thing. Something I decided to do was just put this tape here. This is nothing but 1/2-inch masking tape, real cheap stuff. And all that's gonna do is let the transition from the grate to the floor be a little smoother. You know, there could have been like a little bit of a void there where the hard line was kind of rabbited into the wood to allow that seat for the metal to sit. So I didn't want to see that step, especially being a straight line. Your eyes are going to pick that up real easy. So I'm not going to have any glue on that or anything. So the carpet's just going to float over that area, just where the masking tape is. There's that one. As you can see, that cuts really, really straight. So that should pair nicely with the vents. So I got to do the same thing on the other side and for the handle, and then I'm putting the pieces back together. There's no tolerance gap too between the 3D print and the MDF piece. So when I say these are pressure fit, they are a lot of pressure with that fit. So to be honest, this looks like a factory floor. Like, yeah, the vents are a little bit out of place, but like if you'd ever opened the trunk to GTI, I mean, chances are you're not going to know that that's weird or different. Very inconspicuous. Nobody would guess that this thing has the sound system it has underneath of it. Alright, so now I've got this sucker wired up. I got my RCA front RCAs, rear RCAs, pre-add RCAs that come from here, go to here, and then all my speaker wires are ran up and over to this side out of this breakout bar, and as you can see, I got no outputs. Well, all of these outputs are going to change. Right now, I'm running all of these outputs to passive crossovers, and so basically it's going currently from this amplifier to here, that's the white wires, and then from there out to the passive crossovers, from the passive crossovers here, then from there to the car. Next, I'm now going to wire this amplifier right here, which is the Altitude 600x4. I'm going to take it, I'm going to bridge channels 1 and 4. I'm going to bridge channels 1 and 2. I'm also going to bridge 3 and 4. Those are going to be powering the mid-bass drivers, which this is my right side, this is my left side. And then I'm going to be taking channel 1 and 2 from the D4800. That's going to go to my tweeters on the driver's side, tweeters on the passenger side. And then channel 3 and 4, which is going to be located right here, 3 and 4. Those are going to be going over here to open terminals. That's going to be powering my rear channel speakers, which are going to be coaxial audio control 6x6.5s. And then that's going to get rocking and rolling. Sometimes I totally don't watch movies while I'm driving down the road at nighttime, and sometimes it's just really, really dark like this. So ideally it'd be nice just to turn your headlights off so your illumination turns off and makes the screen brighter. The problem with that is you need your headlights to drive at nighttime. So to bypass that, usually what you do is go over your settings, go to display, turn auto brightness off, and then go back to your source. All right, but obviously that's a lot of steps and that's kind of annoying. So to bypass that, now all I have to do, pull down from the top, hit accessory, and bada boom, she's done. Super simple, totally legal. By the way, I'm totally kidding, that's totally legal. Don't watch videos while you're driving. If you decide you want to do this, it's pretty simple. You can just take a toggle switch and put it in line with your illumination from your wiring harness to your radio, and then click it off so that basically the radio doesn't see 12 volts when your headlights turn on, therefore not turning your illumination on. But you know me, I like to overcomplicate things. So basically what you hear are these two wires here, is one's from the radio, or one's from the car, illumination, and the other one's going to the radio for illumination. I basically just broke that circuit and I broke it down over here. And so I have a relay over here that's attached to. So the normally closed circuit is what it's attached to. And then whenever this relay turns on, it'll open that circuit up, disconnecting those 2 wires and turning the illumination wire off. Next, I have kind of haphazardly had my fuse for my whole system kind of chilling here, right next to my ECU, which I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. I mean, it's covered and protected and stuff, but I definitely want to make this thing solid mounted. So talked to Justin Marks about it because I kind of want some ideas, and I think with what the game plan is I'm going to use this screw and this screw on top of my intake. I'm going to sandwich something that's going to be 3D printed. Going to move that fuse about this location here. So I'm going to take my intake cover off for the night, bring that inside, model it, do whatever I need to, and then get it hopefully printed sometime this week. So this weekend I designed my fuse holder stand. So a fuse holder, battery, stand, and then my intake sits right there. And so what I've done now is I just took the bottom side of the stand that I've got planned to print, and I took a projection of that just so I have a template to make sure that it fits before I waste time or filament printing it. So I'm going to bring this out to the car and see if it fits. So now you can see screw head sitting right there, screw head sitting right there. It's missing all those blades for structure. So I'm going to go ahead with the print because it looks like it's fitting perfectly. In place now. It's a little tighter than I imagined. So basically, I roughly modeled the battery in place. What I did not actually assume was going to happen is that the bottom of the intake that I modeled is a little bit at an angle compared to the top of the battery, so they're not parallel. And what that's causing is the whole entire fuse holder kind of sit a little bit cockeyed backwards. So I'll basically just take this whole structure, I think, and tilt it a little bit. All right, so here at the top one, we have the version 1. As you can see how set back it is. And then we have version 2, so it's going a little bit more forward. So the only limitation I'm gonna have here is that it's gonna be a little harder to get into that screw. Screws aren't tightened down, but as you can see, it's not hitting the battery anymore. It's got some wiggle room. It's pretty nice right in the middle between the battery and the intake. So that's gonna work out really well. And like I said, this isn't gonna be hard to get to, just a little bit, just not as easy. So I can get to that screw and tighten it down still. And the other one hasn't changed. The other one's right up in the open. So yeah. Little tip for you guys, I would go a little bit past the surface because there is a little bit of bounce back. There you go. Now I have a threaded insert and a 3D printed piece. All right, so there it is, bolted in place. All in place now. So this is a bulky connector. It's not meant for this kind of application. So this is gonna get replaced. This was just temporary. And my wire's extra long because I knew I needed to find a home for this. So we got the 2 screws, the 2 factory screws holding it in place. Car has been modified 0% to make this work. And then obviously the aux cage here is held on with this adapter here from Recoil, which I really do like. So OEM wiring hasn't been touched, altered, or modified. And then I've got a pretty good stud for my aux cage to come off the backside. Got my wire cleaned up now, so it looks a little bit better than what it did earlier. Coming off the Recoil battery adapter, I have it heat shrunk, and then I have it kind of looped over, exterior Tessa taped, heat shrunk again, into the A&L fuse, heat shrunk, Tessa exterior into this cloth loom, all the way up to the firewall. So it looks a lot nicer than what it was. Kind of OEM-esque, other than this cover, which obviously looks a little bit aftermarket, but proper nevertheless. So this is the overhead console for my GTI, and I blame audio control for breaking this with their powerful subs. So yeah, I'll send you the bill, audio control. Thanks. Kind of a cool thing that the Stinger Horizon allows you to do is to have 4 trigger relays. So usually these are used for lights and things of that nature, but this is an off-roading vehicle. This is just a Volkswagen GTI, so I utilize them for something else. With the altitude amplifiers, it has what's called valet mode, so it basically turns the amplifier on 25% of the 100% power that you have delivered to it. So if I hit this button here, it turns everything down 25%. I have it attached to my illumination button bypass so that I can change that up. USB power, which is in my glove box, so it has external power to any devices, cell phone chargers or battery packs or anything like that.
and then power hold. So basically it takes ignition off my vehicle and hooks it up to constant, so I can turn my vehicle off, and then my radio will stay on until I click that off again. But it also allows you to custom make your own icons, so I did that tonight. Over by the shifter for the GTI, there was this pocket that had the auxiliary and USB adapter in it for the factory radio. But what I've done is utilize that spot by making an adapter out of ASA for the epicenter control knob. That way, nothing's been modified into the vehicle, but it actually pops into the place of that USB to auxiliary port and utilizes that spot for that knob. Worked out pretty well. I also made a new rearview mirror for this vehicle because the old one kind of stuck away from the point where it attaches to the windshield quite a bit, and every time it vibrated I was kind of scared it was going to break my windshield. So this one's really lightweight and it's made out of ASA, so it's not warping in the heat or anything like that. I body worked it and painted it so it looks really OEM-esque, and it pops on just like the factory one does. The factory infotainment center brain for the GTI was actually located inside of the glove box right here, and basically it was just a screen that was in the center stack. Well, with the aftermarket unit put in here, we have the aftermarket head unit behind here, so we had kind of an empty void over here. So what I've done is I've made, once again out of ASA, a pocket that kind of enveloped that whole area there, and allows me to have a USB charger that I can trigger on and off with the radio. And then this is my USB coming from the back of the radio and my HDMI going to the radio. So then I can hook up a Fire TV or what have you to the radio itself and be able to control that through the head unit itself. The trunk area now too has the labels on top of all the bus bars, showing and indicating exactly what they're getting used for. So this is all the amplifiers. This over here is all the speaker labels going to the vehicle. Over here is the power distribution area. So it shows me all my triggers, my remote, and my ignition from coming to the car, and then what everything on the bus bar actually is separately as well. And as you can see, you have some open terminals for future things. Same with the relays. Those are all color matched, so you can follow the circuit and figure out what exactly everything is. And they have extra relays and extra ignition power for future endeavors. This past year, I have decided to leave Titan Motoring and move on to Team Witt Customs, which I think is kind of the next level in fabrication and interior skills that I can actually hone for myself and for the business. Titan Motoring is more about the quick in and out kind of jobs, and I feel as though Team Witt Customs is more focused on delivering something that's one of a kind that will last generations. So that's kind of where I want to move my focus. And I've noticed too that my mindset is paying attention to all the small, minute details in the beginning, so that you're not made to sacrifice things in the middle or the end of the job. So having a place that kind of helps you hone your accountability and forethought before you're going into a project has been very humbling for me. But at the same time, it allows me to see the full picture of a project before I even begin to start working on it, which has been very nice. So this year I attended both Knowledgefest Las Vegas and Master Tech Expo. Both of those were independently very strong learning events for myself, both as a trainee and as a person just sitting in the audience. I learned literally multiple things in every single class that I attended, not just only to better my craft, but to better my attitude and outlook on certain projects, and just personal growth altogether. Not to mention all the networking that you get to do at events like that, which definitely connect you with some people that can help you in the future, and hopefully that you connect with others to help with as well. So that was really awesome. I was MECP certified as an apprentice. That has since fallen off. I think in November it expired. I haven't renewed that just yet, but I do have planned to do that. Moving over to Team Witt has been a pretty big milestone for me. It made me realize that a place like this, a hot rod shop, is more in the same groove of what I would like to do comparative to a quick in and out 12-volt shop, which Titan Motoring is kind of known for. You have a lot more time and emotion dedicated to a single project than just trying to get something out the door. So it's been really, really nice being able to work with the people over there, Justin Marks and Jared, and everyone that's just kind of already in that hot rod mindset, and it gets you in a place that you didn't really think of before, because you didn't really feel like you had the time to kind of connect all the dots before you get started on the project. And so now my preparedness before I actually start a project is a lot more honed in than what it was beforehand. So my roles within Team Wit Customs are still evolving. Just started in September, so still trying to figure out what a lot of those roles and the way I impact the store really is going to come to be. But I really do hope that I'm a positive light on the whole entire team, and I try to stay humble and realize that I don't know everything. Every single day that I go in that place, I'm learning something new, and I hope that I rub off on some other people, teaching them little things. Even, just how to block scent, for instance, compared to how I thought it was done for the past 10 years that I've been doing it. I was very humbled in the way that I knew nothing about body work, which was awesome that I was able to learn all those new skills through Team Wit Customs, through working underneath Justin. I hope that the way that I model and or think or come to a project in the mindset that I have is a little bit different than what other people have, and gives them a different way of thinking about a project or diving into a certain situation that was maybe new to them as well. To help the whole entire industry as a whole, I would like to give my knowledge that I have in trimming and give that out to the world, so that more of these 12-volt shops can diversify some of the jobs that they take in and do more seat repairs or boat covers or what have you. Getting a sewing machine in the shop, it's just a whole nother avenue of getting revenue in the business, keeping those doors open a little bit longer and help you pursue your goals for the future. It also gives you another way of thinking that maybe you wouldn't have had if you didn't have that stitching mind sitting in the back of there. So I know that the way I fabricate is probably a little bit different than others, just because I do have a background in trimming, knowing I can put a stitch in there not only to relieve stress of material, but also to give a nice effect and a nice accent to the whole entire piece in a whole. I would like to train as much as I possibly could, as long as my money would allow me to travel to different locations. I would like to start traveling to smaller shops, these individuals that have bought sewing machines and not quite ready on the knowledge to get started, and I want to kind of get those training wheels taken off for them and make sure they can really ride their bike at full speed. So I'd like to go to the shop for a weekend, show them the ins and outs of the machine, how to maintain the machine, and also some of the beginning steps on how attach two pieces of material together, how to do your top stitches, how to do your French seams and things of that nature as well. I feel as though naturally I like to teach what I know. At the same time, as I teach and I see what people are kind of having struggles with, or what people are doing just instinctively, it also teaches me not only different ways to teach, but different ways in which I need to approach things myself. Seeing that's a struggle for somebody at the beginning means it's something that I probably need to try to get my expertise kind of dialed in on those certain situations. So I think that the whole industry can benefit from my knowledge of the trimmings aspects of my life, and I'd like to share all that. All that information that I can share, I'm glad to. Why should I be considered Installer of the Year? I think it's just that the share of knowledge, the passion that I have for this industry, the amount of growth that I want to give not only to myself but the industry as a whole. I came from a small business of about 5 individuals, then came to Titan Motoring, which was established a little bit heavier than just 5 employees, obviously. And then since moved on, but I have seen both the small business and kind of the mega side of what the 12-volt industry can have, and I feel like I can work in the betweens of all of that stuff, sharing my knowledge as much as I possibly can, showing the mistakes that I make so that you guys don't have to make those mistakes, and hopefully showing those mistakes in a way that you guys learn why it happens and how to avoid that situation. I try to share everything that I do with the caution of how much time I'm taking away from the actual business that I'm working for. But anytime anyone messages me on Facebook or anything like that, I do my best to help them. I've did a couple of live streams with some certain individuals about how to do some things in Fusion, which I'm not, I don't think I'm an expert in Fusion by any means of the imagination, but I think that I'm further along than what some people are. So if I have knowledge to teach, I'm going to teach that. I have a little motto of stay humble, be kind, and help others, and I believe that through and through, not only in this industry but life. I feel as though the next generation is coming along and looking for those hands, you know, so I'm going to hopefully reach out and pull those people up with me. If I get to teach somebody and then they can teach me something that I don't know in the future because I was able to help them up a little bit, that's just like such a gratifying moment, and I want that to continue in our industry forever. No matter how this turns out, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I'm just very grateful to make it in the top 12, let alone a chance to be Installer of the Year. So thank you for your time, and you guys have a great day. Thank you.